I'm a bad influence.
I'm joined by Teresa of Zeitgeist Zero tonight. So, hello.
Hello.
You alright?
I am, yeah, really good.
It's been 4 years since we last had some kind of chat, because around that time, 4 years ago, I was busy getting ready for my inaugural night shift event. And you were part of?
Yeah,
So and a lot has changed since then, insofar as you've since then become rather a filmmaker. So we'll go into that a little bit later. So to kick things off, we might as well say how things been going for Zeitgeist Zero in the 4 years since April 2017. Well, nearly 4 years anyway.
April 2017. I think we were 5-piece then, weren't we?
Yeah,
We had a drummer, then he left, then we got another drummer, our keyboard player left, our bass player left, now we've a new bass player. So we've gone from 5 to 2 to 3 again. We were a 3-piece for about a couple of years. Yeah.
I rather enjoyed the two drums on a backing track.
Yeah, do you know, a few people have said that they prefer, I suppose it depends on the venue, but they prefer us without drums than with drums, so.
Yeah. I mean, it's individual taste. What's your preference, though, really, when it comes down to it?
I could go either way, really. I think it's quite nice on stage to have somebody hitting the drums behind you, because you feel a beat and then you feel like you're really in the moment. Sometimes, like when it's just 3 of us and you can hear, if it's a small venue, you can hear your feet on the stage tapping. That's never good. So I've been studying, so I've not really.
Yeah.
The band had to take a bit of a back seat, and like with shows, we can play like in term time. We had to play sort of between May and September.
Yeah, your studies to become the expert filmmaker that you've become these days. So how's it been, sort of, what enticed you into the whole filmmaking idea?
A number of things. I suppose poverty, because I had no job.
Right.
And I was out of work, and I just thought, why don't I take on a massive debt of £54,000?
And it seems the logical option, really. I mean, if you've got no money, you might as well make yourself have even less
I had
no
nothing
money.
to lose. I was applying for jobs that I didn't want, and I was increasingly finding that a lot of jobs, even sort of entry-level admin jobs, kind of you needed a degree. And I'd always been sort of resistant about getting into debt, but in the end, I kind of thought, if I study something I love, at least the band's going to have some really nice videos.
Yes.
If nothing else.
As displayed
quite
recently, of course.
Yeah, so it's just, I've got a video that I'm trying to finish. It's just getting venues and locations is the hard bit. It's like I started it in September 2019. I've just not been able to finish it. But yeah, it's just I wanted to study a subject that was creative, and it was either going to be, music or photography or something like that. And then once I decided I wanted to do filmmaking, I sort of fell into doing directing. So you have to try everything in your first year at uni. You have to write a script. you have to do production design and sound and editing and everything, and then you choose what you want. And I kind of got pushed into being a director because there weren't many women in my group. I think there was 4 women to 20 men in just my little group. I think there was like 200 students in my year, and I really, really enjoyed it, even though it's really nerve-wracking and really stressful, and you have to have so many skills, and it's a massive amount of work. You know, my course was the sort of course that you could put in 10% or put in 120%, and you could maybe come out with the same mark. Because if you did sound design, you maybe weren't doing as much work as a producer or a director, which is just the nature of the course. But I really liked it, and I got to, my course was very much, here's how you direct, and here's how you express yourself visually. This is how you work with actors. This is how you use the camera to tell a story and the lighting. Now, go on, get lost, make a film. And it was really nerve-wracking, but it made you a better filmmaker because you were actually having to do it and show results to the whole year group. So it was a really good module that it was actually you learn from doing. So for 3 years, in those 3 years, I was constantly directing, and I made 5 dramas. So that's not bad.
That's not bad going, I'd say. A love affair with cinema and so forth have you had in the past? And perhaps show people your lovely t-shirt.
Yeah, my the fog t-shirt.
Yes. Oh, you've given the game away now. You know. But if you can step back at all, then we might be able to see There we go.
Can
That's
you
much
see?
better now. Yes. So tell me about the love affair with cinema and
I
films.
think, yeah, I've always been a massive film nerd. I was always one of those people who could always quote movies and always knew who directed stuff. And I don't, it seemed that I was one of the few people who knew that. Like, lots of people wouldn't like, they just watch a film, but not really sort of follow it after that. Like, they wouldn't buy, like, I don't know, merch or maybe it was like, especially women, I seem to be quite unusual in that sense. Certainly when I was growing up. And then I always liked things that were sort of um, like at one of the places I used to work had a library attached and had like a load of art house cinema. So I got to watch like Kurosawa and Fellini and just stuff that was unusual, that was different. And, sometimes even on Channel 4 and the BBC used to show unusual films. So that's how I got into like just being a bit more of a film buff and going to film festivals. But never sort of thought of it as a career, but it kind of made sense because I always had this fantasy in my head of being a director. And I always used to think of little stories in my head and little scenarios and how I would film that and how it would look and how I would light it. So I suppose it was always there. It was just putting it together, really. I don't know why I just didn't do it earlier.
So you really always had that desire to order people about. That's what it was always about in the end.
I think that's what people think a director does.
Yeah, that's something I wanted to go on to. I want to know sort of more directly what a director does.
Okay, so there's three main stages. There's the pre-production, where you take the script and you read through it, and then you start to make your creative choices. You look at the characters, and it might just say, Dave, but you have to invent, where's Dave live? How old is he? What's he do for a living? What was his childhood like? You have to make all these decisions, and you have to go through and work out what you want to say as a filmmaker and what the plot says to you. And that's if you don't write it. I have written and directed and written other people's scripts. And then you break it all down, and then you do a breakdown for each department as well, what you want, and then you start casting your, crewing up, and you get together with your producer and you start looking at who can be on your crew, and then you get together with your cinematographer and your sound designer and your production designer, and you have meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting. It just seems like it's endless meetings when you're a director, and making decisions, making compromises because you never have enough money, and then just seeing what you can do with not a lot. That's what attracts me to it. And then, the bit where you get to tell a story is through the actors. So if you cast really good actors, it makes your life so much easier as a director. And when I cast actors, I like to do some improv with them, because it's only through improv I can actually see if they've got if they really understand the character. For my last film, we were doing improv and we were asking the woman in character, the actor, if she, what she thought of her boyfriend, and she was just being really anti-Semitic and just saying things that were really dodgy. and it's like, but your boyfriend in the film, in character, is like, Core is his character's name. He's Jewish. Why are you dating a Jewish man if you don't like Jews? And she just came out with all this like really anti-Semitic stuff. And I thought, no, you really don't understand your character. And then once you've cast, and then you have more production meetings with your crew and your cinematographer, and you work out, you give them a shot list, and then you go on a location recce and you look at your different locations, and then you have to then work out where's the camera going to go, where the actor's going to stand, what props are going to be in that room, what lens you're going to use to tell a story, how dark or light it's going to be. Is it going to be in front of a window, a fireplace? Is there going to be other objects that we're going to see? What's going to be in that frame? And after you've worked out the mise en scène and you've worked it out with your production designer where you exactly want things placed and how you want your actors, then you have a rehearsal with the actors, and you have like a tabletop reading, and then you'll do maybe some blocking, and then you'll send them for a fitting for some costumes that you'll have already picked out with your production designer. You might have even had set build, and then all that is in the run up to the actual production. Then you start working with a first AD. They come on board, and the assistant director, they start to work out the schedule, and then they work out, okay, so we can only get this location, so we need to do these scenes on this day, and then but this actor can only come in on this day, so we need to do, and all that, you work out all that with them, and then you get your schedule, and then you go into production. So that's a massive bit that can take, even on a short film. My last film, it took about 6 months of planning. And then you go into production, and production is over like that. It's just so fast. And this is when all your prep, all your shot list, and all your floor plans and all your storyboards that you've done and all those meetings really pays off. Because on the day, in that space, it's always so busy and there's always so much happening that you need to really, really know your script inside out and know what you want to say, because, it's easy to sort of like go off track, and you can sort of like be spontaneous with sometimes your cinematographer might make a suggestion about maybe actually this shot we should, throw in because I think it'd be really good. And, if you agree, you can go with it, but you have to really be conscious of time, and smaller, low budget filmmaking, you can't really take a lot of time with your shots, and you can't take a lot of time. You can't take a lot of takes. You have to maybe get it in 3 or 4 takes and then move on, because you just don't have that luxury. And then that just goes so fast. It's long days after the day's over. Then you have to, if you review the footage and make sure you're happy with what you got. You're happy, when you were at the wide shots, if then when they went in for a close up, if that light's matching, if it looks okay. If you've done a shot and then a 2 shot and then a reverse shot, and that lighting doesn't match, just stuff like that you have to be checking for. You want to make sure there's no booming shot or lighting stand or anything that you just don't want in that scene. And then after you finish the production, you have a wrap party, and you'll relax, and then you as a director, you're straight into the editing suite. You might have some time off, and that, on small, obviously on smaller films you have editing control, so you're straight in with the editor, and they've done your rough assembly, and then you start pulling it together. And it's always good to have an editor who has a different critical eye to you, so they can see and tell the story, and they'll have been on board with you from the very beginning, and I've had meetings with them from the very beginning about how I want it to look and how I want it to be in the post-production, because obviously they're going to help tell that story and also give that look, if it needs to be moody and dark, And like my film was like a black and white wartime drama, just giving it that vintage look. I need my editor to be able to do that. And then because I am a musician on all my films, I've always done the music as well. So I'm just constantly, when I should be relaxing, after sessions with the editor, I'm into my music studio working on the music. And then you get your rough edit and you do the music, and then you go back to the editor and you maybe do a bit more editing, then you go back into the studio with your band and you tweak a bit more of the music, and you're smoothing them together, so because you want the music to emphasize certain things at certain points. And then after you get picture lock and it goes off to be color graded. Pretty much after that, it's in the hands of the producers who go and put it into film festivals. So that is a very long list.
You never told me you went to see her.
Because you'd have wanted to come with me. We both know how dangerous that is. Going out after curfew and to see a non-Jew of all things.
Vermin do not ride bicycles.
But...
Or answer back.
Who cares what Mother thinks? Who cares what any of them think? It's only temporary.
And tell us about this film of yours, the recent one, which I believe has been winning considerable critical acclaim.
Yeah, so the last film I made was called Shattered, which is set between 1942 and 1946, and it's set in the Netherlands, and it is about Ilse and her brother Cor, and he's dating a friend of hers called, oh my god, I've forgotten her name. Ilse and
When you
Erica.
only directed the film, I mean, you're not supposed to know these things.
It's so last year. It was actually a year ago nearly that we filmed it. And basically, it's just after the Nazis invade the Netherlands, and they're starting to put restrictions in place, and she gets her bike confiscated because Jews aren't allowed to not allowed to own their own bikes. They're not allowed to go on public transport. They're starting to like get chased out of their jobs, and we see that. And our friend who's not Jewish, she kind of thinks that it's just a phase. It's not gonna be long, and it's gonna be no big deal. And the next time you see them, they're on a cattle car going to Auschwitz, and her brother gets shot on the train by some soldiers, and he dies, and it really obviously affects her. So she comes back in 1946 after the war to the Netherlands, and she's going to get her revenge.
That sounds so pretty exciting. And what's the TTB of it?
The what, sorry?
The TTB.
Oh. No flubber cups, I'm afraid.
Oh, that's and how many explosions?
There's 0 explosions. There's gunshots though.
Ninjas.
We couldn't have no ninjas, and we couldn't afford actual guns, so we just had to pre-drill some holes in the wood and fill them with sand and sawdust, and then use compressed air.
Yeah.
So you saw the dust.
When is Shattered going to be available for all of us to view? I mean, keeping it hidden and keeping it to these film festivals and stuff. And I think that's very selfish of you, frankly,
I think that the secret there, Derek, is to fund the films. Because if you fund the films, like give £10 or something, you get to see the film. You get sent a link. But if you didn't fund the film, it will be released. Last time I talked to my producer, which was a few weeks ago, it's got another year on the film festival circuit. Normally films run for about 2 years, and then it'll be released. So probably, either at the end of this year or the beginning of next year.
So can people still pay towards it and see it, or is it, being as the sort of film has been made now, can they no longer sort of contribute?
Yeah, I mean, I've suggested this before. If that maybe we should like do a code or something but I think that it's something I'd have to raise again with producers, see if there was enough of a demand, maybe just for like a couple of quid or something. We did do a fundraiser for recently for film festivals because of COVID. Our film, all of my year, they wouldn't, the film school wouldn't fund any of our films because most of the films didn't get finished. But my film was the only film that was completed and met all its deliverables. So it was a real shame that we didn't get any film school support. But we did get quite far on our own. We had some extra money left over from our first crowdfunding, the initial crowdfunding, which we put into film festivals, which, you know, went on to win awards. And then we did another fundraiser. So it's in film festival circuit again this year. So fingers crossed that it does well. Yeah.
So you've got your money to make your blockbuster. You've got to make a crowd-pleasing, entertaining blockbuster. So what is it that you're going to make?
If I had to make a blockbuster,
you've got to make something. I mean, you're allowed to go sort of Christopher Nolan style blockbuster if you wish, but you know, what would you go for if you've got to make something that is predominantly mass market? But you know, so you've got to make an action film or something. But you know, you've got a big budget, you've got to deliver on something, you've got to get the return on it. So what are you going to do?
I would probably do something sci-fi or horror. I used to really love comics when I was growing up in the mid-teens, and I still read a lot of graphic novels. So maybe something from the Marvel universe. They haven't done any films, have the Marvel?
I don't think it's been touched on yet. I mean, there's all that rich
really.
source material, and yet somehow, you know, it seems unexplored somehow. So if you were going to kickstart this whole comics films, I mean, it's a revolutionary idea, I have to admit. I mean,
why has nobody thought of that before?
I don't really get it, but you know, what is there a comic that you'd like to make a movie out of?
I'd probably like to do a Doctor Strange.
Well, let's
and I always
let's see
liked
if
Doctor Strange and Man-Thing. I always liked, and maybe I think probably Dracula. Marvel did Dracula. And they also did Wolfman. So maybe I think really that I should make Dracula. Or maybe Vampirella.
I have
a film that is a favourite of yours? I know it can be very hard to pick one, but just pick our favourite film if you like.
I've got so many. I mean, I obviously like John Carpenter. I really like Dario Argento. I wrote about Dario Argento for my dissertation.
What did you have to say about Mr. Argento then?
Well, I was talking about how Deep Red, when the film came out in the 70s, it was actually really progressive because I had a female sidekick who was really strong, and she's the one. In films like that of the time, women were like shrinking violets and damsels in distress that needed rescuing. He has a woman who's kick-ass, who works, who's independent. He's the one who's quite sort of like soft and delicate, and it has a gay character in who's not there to laugh at. You actually feel a lot of sympathy for him. He always had gay characters. He always had really strong female characters. That's why I like Dario Argento.
What's the best Carpenter film then?
Mine's is In the Mouth of Madness.
That's a very fine choice. I do adore that one, and it seems a rather ignored one.
It is, and it's very Lovecraftian. And
Absolutely.
It's got Sam Neill in, who was the Omen. So it's
Sam
really
Neill's
good.
great. Yes, it's a very fine one. I know I'd have to pick The Thing as my favourite, but I do absolutely adore In the Mouth of Madness. Obviously, it's definitely one people should try and seek out, that because it's definitely very John Carpenter and it's quite unusual.
I think another film I like that I'm a massive fan of is Dark City. I love that with Rufus Sewell.
Yes, indeed.
There's a massive Kira Kurosawa fan. I loved his films. I even like this. Really like High and Low. A massive Hitchcock fan.
Got a fave Hitchcock?
Probably maybe North by Northwest. Maybe Notorious. There's films there. It's films. There's issues obviously with like with Vertigo. It's quite problematic. There's Notorious. It's like quite problematic. With this sort of in Vertigo, he gets this woman to dress up as his dead girlfriend, and in Notorious,
as is standard,
Cary Grant loves Ingmar Bergman, but he makes her marry somebody else.
Before we do, what's next for Zeitgeist Zero?
So we are in the middle of writing, recording, working on some new stuff. And I started helping out doing the music more because during lockdown last year I started learning piano. Mainly because when we're writing soundtracks, I didn't know what I was writing. I just playing stuff, but I knew it sounded right, but I didn't know why. So I've started learning piano, started reading music, and so I've been helping out more with the music, and then probably maybe in the summer, if we're able to complete the music video, at least filming it, and then one of the music videos I have planned, the one that I'm halfway through, Plastic Diamonds, probably maybe have a rehearsal with our new bass player, and maybe do a live stream or possibly pre-record it and then put it up on the web. Yeah, but in the meantime, I might just do like lyric videos and little stuff like that, and I'm still doing my little Teresa Talks things.
Very much. So, would you say there's a tone coming up with your next Zeitgeist Zero album, or just sort of more of the similar sort of subjects, or?
I
something?
think subject-wise, um, hmm, it's quite different to anything we've written before, because I think, like, I've never written a sex song before, which was Satanic Sex Witch.
Is it
I've
an
never.
autobiography then?
No. Well, maybe.
That you're not
But
telling.
like Toxic Diamonds is about fame and people's sort of like desire and drive to become famous, and then in the song the person becomes famous, but then they could just get chewed up and spat out by fame. So I've never been famous, so I don't know what that's like. So that's sort of different sort of subject matter I've never really tackled before. Because normally the lyrics are quite personal. There are a couple of personal ones in there. I think because we have no drummer, I think it's going to be less rocky and slightly more electronic than it was previously.
And you definitely
I also
veered
think
that
it's
way
because we have
sometimes in the past.
a lot more synths than we had before. How many have we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I think we've got 8, 9, 10.
I think you've got more than, might even have more than me now.
I keep saying we should do like a little thing for YouTube on different like kit that we get. We seem to constantly have kit coming in and out.
I've often seen Corin posting about his latest acquisition of some kind of on Teresa Talks, then other than this, which
The
doesn't
Dance
quite count.
Society.
Oh, Dance Society, yeah.
Yeah.
Not the Society.
Not the Society. I do actually ask May about the Dance Society and Society, and she does cover that. So if you want to find out, watch it when it comes out. It should be I was doing them once a week, but they are quite time consuming to edit them all down and everything. So
Yeah, the secret there is to just not really bother.
well, what I tend to do is I edit one, and once it's up, then the following week I tend to spend doing other creative things. Like this week I've tried to finish the breakdown of the script that I'm working on for my next short film. And then, so that's finished. I'll finish it off tomorrow and send it off to my producer. So then from Monday I'll start editing the next thing, because I'm sort of I've got just myself to occupy at the minute, because there's no work, there's no film work, there's no temp work. It's just super quiet. So I'm trying to spend this time. I'm also writing a script, a feature-length script. So I'm keeping myself busy, and also learning how to edit and how to do visual effects and color grade. So I'm keeping nice and busy, as well as writing the lyrics. And
keeps you off the streets anyway.
Yeah.
Union gig as soon as possible when everything's all over.
Yeah, we do.
Anyway,
I hope it's looking like it'll be this year that we might get to play.
Never know, I might actually get to play Goth City as billed for a change, as opposed to sort of filling in last minute or being a sort of a secondary sort of after show. What's your favourite Zeitgeist video then?
So far, I think Satanic Sex Witch, because I did all of it, like from beginning to end, apart from, my friend filmed a little bit in the woods, but and Corin helped out a bit with the some of the filming, but I think it was one of those things that I had an idea of what I wanted to do, and then it took so long to do because I just had no time with uni. I think between the first year and the second year, it took a year to film, just because I had no time. And then I finished it, and then I edited it together. But then it needed to be color graded, it needed effects, so that took another year before I finally finished it. So I think that, because I it was my baby. It was the first sort of video that I'd actually created myself. That's my favorite. But obviously, Don't Pop My Bubble, I produced that and I'm really happy with that. But that's not color graded. So every time I look at it, like now since doing
Now you
filmmaking,
feel,
I'm
I
like,
could do that so much better.
those skin tones are really off.
All right, well, I will end there anyway. I just thought it'd be an interesting thing to add there. So I do appreciate you spending a bit of time tonight for a bit of a chat, and I guess I'll see you again on Tuesday night next week for some more cinematic torture.
Oh, it's fun. I do like it. You take care, Derek.
All right, you too, and
See
thanks
ya.
again.
Bye.
Bye.